Okay, let's get started. Thank you so much. Welcome everybody to the 6 p.m. Special Redevelopment Agency meeting. Today is January 22nd, 2019. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present except for Councilmember Lopez, who has asked to be excused to meet with Senator Romney briefly. He'll be joining us when he's done. I've asked Vice Chair Jaburka to help us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yes, we were hoping that some Junior League members in the audience might do that for us. Is Grace Ballard going to do it?
I think we have a courageous volunteer.
Awesome. Please rise. Will the audience please say the pledge? Start. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Please join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Before we get to the excitement as to which everyone in red is here today, we've got some business to tend to, so hang tight for us if you would. First item on the agenda, actually before, first item on the agenda is approval of minutes for the closed session of August 28th, 2018. Board Member Blair.
Yes, thank you, Chair Nadolski. I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be correct.
For the special meeting of October 23rd, 2018, Board Member Heyer.
Thank you, Chair Nadolski. I have reviewed those minutes, and to the best of my recollection, found them to be accurate.
For the closed session of October 23rd, 2018, we'll have to kick those to the next agenda item. As
those, and they're correct.
Oh,
Chair.
Thank you, Doug. Board Member Stevens has reviewed those. For the special meeting of October 30th, 2018, Board Member Stevens again.
Correct, Chair.
And for the regular meeting of November 13th, 2018.
Yes, Chair Nadolski, I've read them and found them to be accurate, and they propose that we approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member White to approve the minutes, seconded by Board Member Blair. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Next item on our agenda is a public hearing. Continental Community Reinvestment Project Area Plan and Budget. I think we're hearing from Brandon Cooper tonight.
Well, thank you and good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. It's good to be here. We have a long discussion relative to RDAs tonight, and I'm quite sure that most of the folks behind me did not come to hear that. So we'll go as quickly as you all would like to in terms of questions and the understanding of what we're proposing tonight. In your packet is Resolution 2018-13, which is a resolution approving what we've been working on for a long time, which is the Continental Community Reinvestment Project Area. This all started back in 2012 when the Hostess company went bankrupt, sold the Hostess factory just to the west of us to a company called Flowers Foods. And then Flowers Foods put it up for sale, and we decided to buy it. And now as it sits, it's a vacant land, and we're hoping tonight that you can see the vision that we see for some of not only that area, but some areas around it in terms of the potential of reinvestment. I'd like to start by just talking about how we come about in terms of of acknowledging some of these investment opportunities. Back in 2015, as you know, the council and the city jointly adopted the Quality Neighborhoods Initiative resolution, and that essentially establishes a strategy to revitalize Ogden's neighborhoods. And so everything we do, all the decisions that we make as a community and economic development department, we do under the impression of that initiative, trying to make Ogden's neighborhoods of choice. And from that Quality Neighborhoods Initiative, we have established certain components that make up a quality neighborhood. I won't go into all of these now for the sake of time. You've seen this before. But there are certain elements that we're striving to achieve in our residential communities, in our downtown neighborhoods, which are largely commercial, and bringing about a sense of place where people feel comfortable, secure, economic development can thrive, and the quality of life is enhanced. In addition to those quality neighborhood components, we also devised an outreach process that allowed us to understand what the community thought about the areas that we were targeting. And the Continental CRA is no different. In November of 2017, we held an open house that wasn't widely attended, given the nature of this area. It's mostly commercial. But we did notice the area and the surrounding area around it, and we did have some folks that came and gave us feedback. The feedback that we were after was related to what they saw as bright spots, what they saw as impediments, and what they saw as things that could be expounded on. We took that and we formatted it into some feedback. We had another open house, presented that feedback to those attendees, and also gathered some more information, and essentially came to what is called internally to us as a community investment framework, which is the roadmap that leads us to deciding who, what, where, why, and how we should influence investment and economic development. So that leads us to the implementation of a community reinvestment area. That is, as you know, provided for under state law. It allows the redevelopment agency to collect the tax increment that otherwise would go to the other taxing entities. It collects it to itself, and then under law has the ability to reuse that tax increment for redevelopment purposes. There's two types of CRAs. One is a CRA without eminent domain, and the other provides for the use of eminent domain via a blight study. For the record, this proposal to you tonight and all the work that we've done over the last couple of years is intended to not use the power of eminent domain, so we will not be seeking a blight study. This is the straight CRA. And by the statute, it also requires that the taxing entities get themselves involved voluntarily through the use of interlocal agreements, which will be coming up later on in the agenda. Just a brief introduction to tax increment. I know there's quite a few questions out there that persist as it relates to what tax increment finance is, how it's used, why it's important. So what you'll see here is just a basic representation of what that increment does. You'll notice in the dark blue, those dark blue sections would represent the taxing entities. I think in Weber County there's 10 or 11 various taxing entities that you would see on your property tax notice. And they all have a rate that they assign to the valuation of your property, and they collect money based on that rate. And so you'll see that the blue represents those entities, and the light blue would represent the redevelopment agency. Once a project area is created, such as tonight potentially based on your action, the taxing entities continue to receive the same amount of tax that they received prior to the creation of that district. You'll notice that the baseline property value remains the same through the entire duration of the project area. What happens during that time is that any captured appraised value, so that increment in value of a property that occurs over that time, is captured by the redevelopment agency. Again, the other taxing entities always get the same amount of money that they received previous. That incremental value that's generally derived from additional investment, focused investment, and in our market, and in our case in Ogden, investment that generally needs a little boost, a little incentive, then that again comes to the redevelopment agency for the period of the project area plan, and then it terminates, and then the dark blue on the end there is the value after the termination of that project area, in which all of the entities receive the new boosted value. So it's a way to incentivize and capture investment that otherwise wouldn't happen during normal market conditions, ideally, and it's a way for these taxing entities to increase their revenues without raising taxes potentially by diverting some of the taxes they otherwise would have received into an investment pool that then could be used at the discretion of the agency to incentivize development that, again, otherwise wouldn't take place. So I hope that little graphic helps people understand a little better that this is not a new tax. It's the redirection of existing taxes and taxes that are being created from the incentive itself. So it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of a thing. So again, tonight's proposal is specifically for the Continental CRA, the establishment of it. It's generally bounded by the yellow line. There's a legal description attached to the plan, which is more specific about how it relates to property lines and right-of-ways. But generally, it's the site that you see before you, Washington Boulevard to Wall, 27th to the backside of 25th Street. In that geographical boundary, we have determined that there could be some key projects that would really provide value to this area in the case of supporting 25th Street, bringing new residents to the community, to the downtown, and enhancing the quality of life, and also creating jobs. The Hostess site being the biggest, that's almost a 5-acre site. We anticipate anywhere up to 345 apartments, some office, there'll be some green space. Public parking could potentially be a part of that plan, a connection from 26th Street to 25th Street that would allow pedestrians to flow through the block. There's also an opportunity at the Union Square Apartments. I can go back here. Union Square Apartments are here. And so there's some empty land here, and there's some empty land here that could also provide some new housing units that would enhance 25th Street and complete that project that was started so long ago. Union Square Townhomes, that's that same general area. The Civic Block is the block that we are on, which is, as you can see, part of the block is encompassed in the geographical boundary. The other part is out. So we see some opportunity there to make more efficient use of the publicly owned land, to provide some public amenities, make more efficient use of parking, also give our courts folks a better working situation. So there's some opportunity there that we'd like to explore. And then Block 9 and Block 20 are these two blocks here. And you'll notice that generally the land use on these blocks is inefficient. There's large parking, surface parking areas, older buildings, and the development intensity and density really isn't consistent with what you would want to see in a downtown urban fabric. So we're hopeful that there could be some redevelopment there as well. I won't go into the development objectives too much. They're in your packet. They're also part of the plan. As a note, we've made the plan available to the public as required by statute. It's been available on the second floor in the recorder's office, online, and on the fourth floor in the CED office. And so we have hoped that we would receive some comment. I think we have some questions that have been transmitted to me that I'll cover in a minute. But these are part of the development objectives that are in the plan. Just a couple of note that we would like to see new multifamily structures take place in this area, again, to support 25th Street, the vitality of it, make sure that we can park the area that is growing where more demand exists, and then provide for the historic reuse and renovation of any historic structures. Public benefit, I'll cover this a little bit more in detail, but based on those projects that I've described, potentially there could be $162 million worth of new investment that doesn't exist now and likely wouldn't exist unless there was this kind of action that takes place. So here are the numbers. This is part of the budget, which is, again, a required piece of the adoption of a project area plan. Right now, that entire geographical boundary that I showed you in the yellow has a taxable valuation of a little over $19 million. If all of those projects that I described come about, that would roughly equate to about $236 million worth of private investment, which would add $162 million to that $19 million worth of taxable value. And so what we would like to do is establish a project area for 22 years that would have the city, the school district, and the county divert a portion of their tax up to those numbers there. 7.7 million for the city, 20 million for the school district, and a little over 7 million for the county. They would distribute that to the agency for a period of 22 years at a participation rate of 90%. What that means is that new taxable valuation that I described in the graphic, instead of 100% of that new value being diverted to the agency, 90% of that would be diverted to the agency for the use of incentivizing development. 10% would actually flow through to the entities, and they would reap some of the reward, so to speak, in terms of what that development is doing in valuation in the area. The project area plan and budget calls for a maximum amount collectible by the agency to be $35 million. 26 million of that 35 could be reinvested. The way that happens generally is in the form of development agreements with developers who are willing to take the risk on private development. It could go into infrastructure improvement to improve roads, transit, connections, utilities, those kind of things. And then we divert, pursuant to the statute, a little over $7 million to our housing fund, and a little under $2 million would come into the agency for administrative costs. Keep in mind, that's over 22 years. So with that, I'll maybe cover some of the questions that came to me as part of this public comment period, and then I'll open it up to any questions that you all might have. So I won't read this verbatim, but I'll just cover the main topics so you can see what the question was. Are there too many of these types of districts in the city? As you'll see a little bit later, I'll cover in the annual report summary. We currently have 19 districts that we manage as a redevelopment agency. That's on the high side as it relates to the entire state. I think we have the most, if not the second most, of all the redevelopment agencies in the state. But our approach is not are there too many, but are they being effective? We have, out of the 19 we manage, 12 of those districts were established before 2000, which means that out of those 12, we're going to see all of them expire in the next few years. Out of the 19 we manage, 8 of them are being redirected to the junction debt. That was a law that was passed some years ago that allowed for other redevelopment areas that weren't associated with the development of a recreation center to contribute to the debt load of that recreation center. And so we took advantage of that law. So half of our districts presently are contributing to the debt of the junction, which helps pay off those bonds. And so you see that it's not necessarily the quantity, how many are numbered in the list, but what are they doing and how well are we using the tool? Right now, in terms of the Ogden market, it's difficult to see private development happen because we have a low ceiling in terms of incomes and a high floor in terms of expenses. So our expenses mirror that of Salt Lake City in terms of construction costs. Land costs are getting up there. They're not quite there yet. But we have a high floor and a low ceiling, and so that margin that a developer would need to make an investment worthwhile in the Ogden market doesn't always make sense. And so they're looking for real equity, not debt, not quasi-equity that has to be repaid to an investor, but real equity that can go to write down some of those costs or boost some of those incomes. And the redevelopment tool is by far the best tool for that true equity source. Okay, next question. What are some of the other strategies that the redevelopment agency employs to initiate and recruit development to the city? That's a really good question. We offer all kinds of different programs through our business information center that does small business loans, to providing new market tax credit conduits, historic tax credit conduits, in some cases low-income housing tax credit conduits. All of those require governmental sponsorship. We do quite a bit of land conveyance, which means land that we own, we convey at no charge to a developer for an incentive to bridge that gap that I just explained. One of our largest resources that we're very grateful for and tremendously blessed to have is the use of BDO lease revenue. That source of revenue rivals the use of RDA tax increment, and that's money coming into the city that has a lot of folks needing it to support them in their efforts with maintenance costs and overhead and those kind of things. We do a lot of self-performance. As you probably know, we build single-family homes through our community development folks. And right now we're under construction with, I believe, 21 homes. That is largely done because the market is unable to provide that type of a product itself. We try really hard to create institutional partnerships and the leverages that come from those. And we also try to pave the way for private development, private investment through regulatory and policy initiatives to make sure that our zoning is efficient and correct, that our business licensing and permitting is efficient, and so we work really hard on making sure those things are in place too. It's not all about money. There's a lot of factors that go into incentivizing the marketplace. Can you give us an example of a successful district and a not so successful district? One of the Cinderella stories, not just in Ogden, but in the entire region. RDA law across the country was established in the 50s and was really adopted by Ogden City in the late 60s, early 70s. And by far the Business Depot Ogden, or the DDO EDA, Defense Depot Ogden Economic Development Area, is the poster child for how to do redevelopment right. You can see that when we received that land from the federal government in 1999-2000, it was valued at a little over $22,000. As of 2019, it'll have approximately $475 million worth of taxable valuation. Not to mention the 6,000 jobs, not to mention the numerous buildings that are out there. There are major companies that call BDO home. So by and large, that is one of our greatest success stories, and we look forward to when that district sunsets and that adjustment happens, as I showed you in the graphic, to allow the entities that participated to receive benefit. One of the unsuccessful districts is Golden Links. This was a small 1-acre district that was established to provide a loan for the Oddfellows Manor. Some time ago, it was tax exempt at the time, and right now I believe it remains tax exempt. We derive $8,800 from that, from I think a small off parcel, but that's really I'm sure it had benefit at the time when they enacted it, but in hindsight, that's one of those that we look at and say there's some lessons to learn there as to how not to do things in the future. What risk is there to the city, the school district, and the county? Because of the nature of how tax increment works, as I mentioned, that investment has to happen in order for the increment to even be created. There's actually more risk in doing nothing. And we've seen that over a period of decades as the railroad industry and other supporting industries waned and the economics of the Ogden market changed. There was a tremendous amount of disinvestment, and 25th Street was kind of a major victim of that disinvestment, along with other areas in the city. We have extreme market pressure and competition in terms of what other communities are doing, how they recruit businesses and jobs, what they're doing in terms of public improvement investment and those kind of things. And so that leakage is real, and if there aren't jobs here, if there isn't product for those companies to office in and to work in, then that is very difficult to build a quality of life or a place that people want to live. Decay of infrastructure and the difficulty in maintaining sustainable services, that's a big deal for all three of the entities, the school district, the city, and the county. All three of us have expenses. All three of us have a level of of service that we'd like to maintain, and as we all do, we rely on taxes to provide that income to offset those expenses. And outside of a tax increase every year, there's really no other way to increase revenue to these three entities other than valuation. Does this take money from taxpayers? The easy and hard answer is no. As I described, the investment is being made by the developers, and the incentives that come from that are derived from those investments, and so there's no new additional taxes. This is just the redirection of existing taxes as they grow from investment. Can we ask developers to allocate a percentage of the housing to low income? That's already provided for in the statute. As you can see, up to 20% of tax increment is required to go into a housing fund, which I described as I covered the budget of the Continental CRA. I believe it was a little over $7 million that would be allocated to the housing fund over 22 years. Are there any ways we can encourage or include the requirement to work with a local contractor and local folks? We do not currently have a redevelopment agency or city policy that requires this, but we do work with the developers to make sure that they're looking local first, and that as much as it makes sense economically, that they're employing our people. Certainly, as construction happens in these development projects, we look to have that indirect benefit of people going to our restaurants and using our gas stations and other services that we provide here. Are there examples of newer development projects that have not been incentivized this way? And the answer is yes. I would say most of the development that takes place in Ogden is not incentivized through an RDA. A lot of it, as I mentioned, is incentivized through the general fund of the Ogden via the BDO lease revenue source that we have. You can see on that list that there's some major projects that we've seen. I've been with the city and with the RDA going on my 12th year. Most of those projects have taken place during my time here. And Walmart, Winco, the Weaver State Downtown, those are some of the biggest projects that we've done and that I've had a privilege to be a part of. And none of those have received tax increment finance. So it's a great tool. It's not the perfect tool, and it's certainly not the only tool that needs to take place to make some of this stuff happen. Are funds being taken from the Ogden School District? Again, the answer is no. All the entities that we enter into an interlocal agreement with choose to make the investments that are stipulated in those agreements because they understand that one of the only ways that they have to increase the revenue that they need to offset their growing expenses is to see investment happen in the community. And if the private market is not doing that, there has to be some intervention. We are the very first to look to the private market to solve some of these problems. But in the event that it doesn't, similar to what's happened over the last 40 years in Ogden, there has to be ways to help that along. And they know that properties inside an RDA generally grow faster in value than those properties outside of an RDA because that investment is focused and it's usually significant. Does funding for Ogden Downtown Alliance come from RDA project areas, and will that funding be affected? We are very happy with our partners at ODA, and we look for them to continue to do great things, but they are funded through Ogden City sources. The redevelopment agency does not participate in that. So that's a lot of information. I'll be happy to take any questions. And it's our recommendation that you approve Resolution 2018-13.
Thanks for presentation, Brandon, and thanks for incorporating the questions that came to us through Councilmember Chaburka, Board Member Chaburka, Board Member White, and others from the community. So those questions were some of the themes that we were hearing from folks prior to the meeting, and we might hear some questions related to that here in a little bit. Do any of the council members have questions before we take public input?
Mm-hmm. Just real quick, so the school district and the county, do they have an opportunity to say no?
Yes.
And do they have an opportunity to determine the amount that they want or the time or what?
Yeah, there's nothing in statute that requires any participating entity to participate at a monetary level or a duration level. It's all voluntary based on the discussions that we have.
You outlined the key projects, that doesn't necessarily mean exactly what's going to go in there, correct? We
Right.
don't have
The Hostess project is the biggest. So I mentioned $243 million worth of potential investment. The Hostess project is the bulk of that. It's ranging anywhere from $100 to $150 million. So we do have a developer for that. We are working hard on that project, and hopefully we can bring to you, based on the results of tonight, we can bring to you a project plan and an agreement to govern that. So stay tuned.
Anyone else?
I have one question. I'd like to go to, in our work session, we talked about the school district, and it was brought up that when the BDO project is matured, that the school board district would receive $2 million, and they would use that maybe to update their schools and so forth. Could you add any more information to that?
Sure. That's just based on our understanding of how the school district's budget works. We work closely with Zane Wolstenhume, the business administrator for the Ogden School District, and from our understanding, property taxes go to their capital improvement fund, which helps to build their facilities. And so, in the absence of growth from appreciation, they're looking to juice that up so that they can see more money. And in the case of BDO, they're looking forward to that, the sunset of that area, because their general fund basis will increase roughly between $2 and $3 million, which they'll then be able to put right back into their infrastructure and facilities.
So that's a benefit to the school district there.
Absolutely. And in 1999, 2000, when that project area was established, I'm assuming that whoever was on the board of the school district saw that vision, had that hope, and luckily in 2019, 2020, they, along with the city and the county, will be beneficiaries of that vision.
Is that one-time money, or is that ongoing?
It's ongoing, meaning it hits your general fund budget, and that happens every year.
Any other questions?
I have a couple questions. Thanks again, Brandon, for addressing some of those questions. I know we talked a little bit about this before, but we didn't have quite the same audience. On the map, 25th Street is kind of excluded, the buildings, right, the historic buildings. Do you mind just talking a little bit about that, how that we divided sort of that block a little bit?
Yeah, 25th Street has been in a redevelopment project area for a long, long time, and we felt the need to allow that area to adjust to its current values and see what the market can do. We've invested in that area a lot for a long time, and we want to see how that investment kind of takes hold. So by working behind it, we can support the ongoing success of 25th Street, but we don't have to derive any more benefit from that, because we've been doing that for since 1979, I think.
And another question I got, and I'm not sure, you kind of addressed it, but I just want to reiterate. Do we ever as a city need to raise taxes because of things we've done with these districts? Because I think sometimes people are feeling like there's a possibility, because we have like the valuation staying the same, that then because of the things we still have to pay for in the community, as maybe we get more and more people or more infrastructure is needed, then we might have to raise our taxes because of that.
It's a good question. It's also a very difficult one to address in this forum. The easy answer is that...
I always do that to you.
I know.
Sorry.
If I had a whiteboard, we could maybe get somewhere.
Sorry.
But the way that state law governs property tax and the use of property tax as a city government, the calculation is the prior year equals the current year. And the higher the valuations go, the lower the rate goes, so that equilibrium is met every single year. So essentially, because Ogden City, as of a few years ago, had never initiated a truth in taxation hearing, which by law they would have to raise taxes, Ogden was operating on $1984 when the truth in taxation law was established. So the answer is that the mitigation of that new growth was already being handled in the calculation of the certified tax rate. So cities were not seeing new growth that was taking place naturally. And in order to capture it, you either have to capture it in an RDA because it's like a savings account for 20 years, or you have to have a truth in taxation every single year. And politically, that's difficult. This was brought to Salt Lake City's attention a few years ago when they put $1 bazillion into City Creek, and the next few tax years after that, they were not seeing what they projected as being those new growth revenues, because that equation that I just described was essentially rendering that new growth obsolete. And so we changed the law, and now it's a little bit different. But no, the long answer, I guess, is it doesn't generally mean that we have to raise taxes to compensate because of the way that our certified tax rate is being established.
Okay, anything else? Any other questions from the council? Okay, this is a public hearing, so we will be taking questions. We'll probably have you back up, or taking comments. We'll probably have you back up for some questions or clarification that might come from. Before we take public comment, is there a show of hands for folks that would like to speak to this item? Okay. 4 of you? Okay, come on up one at a time. This is your opportunity to address the council on this item. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Angel Castillo, 1260 25th Street. I'm very excited about the Continental CRA proposal, and the business department has done an amazing job with vision for Ogden and bringing us up to speed and addressing a whole lot of needs. It makes me really proud to live here and be a part of the community. I know that Brandon addressed one of the questions I had with regards to a percentage being able to be designated towards lower income housing. But I'd like to actually talk not just about putting money to be used at future projects, but to do something called inclusionary zoning to guarantee lower cost housing that will help temper soaring rents. And the reason I'd like you to consider that is that we should all, as members of this community and members of the council, look at what's 10 to 15 years in the future going to look like. Utah already has a housing shortage, and it can't be answered by single-family homes. The long-term solution is multifamily units near transportation, and the Continental Community Reinvestment Project is right there in the middle of everything. So desirable to be able to get on a train and do things in other parts of the city or the state. And we really need to consider things like, where will the children of the families in Ogden live? Not your children that are grown and already out and have their homes, but these children. Where are they going to live if they want to stay in Ogden and continue to be a part of this community? Where are Weber State students going to live after they graduate? They can't afford single-family homes. Where will the millennials live when they're burdened with student debt and they have less loan availability because they have student debt? They just graduated and they don't have credit cards. And where will our fixed-income seniors live? And where will our entry-level teachers, police, fire department, and nurses live? And I really want you to focus on entry level. When you come out of school and you're going to start as a police officer, or you're going to be a fire department person, or you're going to be a nurse, you are not matching the medium income that's in this community. You're entry level, you're $30,000, you're $35,000. If you're lucky, if you're a teacher, I know teachers that make less than that. So lower income households are hit the hardest by rising property costs. And if we can enact inclusionary zoning, we can deem, as these new developments of 8 units and over, as they come on board, if 10% of those can be available to those lower income housings. And lower income doesn't mean poverty necessarily. It doesn't necessarily mean Section 8. It means entry level. And so let's address our housing issues before they become a crisis. Other cities are already considering this. Let's lead. Let's be leaders in the state of Utah. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Come on up. Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Leon Jones, and I'd like to thank Brandon for all the work he's done and all the good things, but I'm unfortunately I've written out my comments, by the way, based on the letter that I got before.
Brandon, that's good.
And I'll not go over those, but some of the things I would want to talk about is that when Brandon said these things are effective, you know, he brought up the example of Business Depot Ogden, but that's entirely different. The difference there is so vastly different that it's almost ludicrous to point that out in comparison with this. The second thing he said that some of the, I'm sorry I didn't bring enough of those. He pointed out the kind of things that the city could do with this money and things, and one of them he put down was the city could have regulatory and policy changes. Well, it might be better if they had some regulatory and policy changes for the people that are actually here, that are actually have invested in the Ogden and in this district. And the other thing I would like to mention is that at the end of 22 years, the school district is going to need just as many teachers, just as many students, just as many buildings as they do now, and to take $22 million away from them is just $22 million is going to have to get somewhere else. I mean, the property taxes are going to be the same at the end of 22 years, whether this thing goes through or not. I think I'll stop right there. I'd like you to consider the written things, and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Let's see, I'm Amelia Jones. What else do I have to say? Just my name? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I live in Ogden, and actually I care a lot about this because I have a business on 25th Street, which is just a very peculiar boundary with this CRA, and also am a part owner of a building that's inside of the CRA. And so I have to admit that I've not been super educated about this, which is a shame because I see Brandon actually now and again. But some of the things I'm really interested in are if any studies really been done to see the viability of the development of this area without the CRA. I'm interested in knowing how much of that has been done. I'm really concerned because if you're a business on 25th Street, you know very well that parking is crazy tight. There's no parking down there. I am confronted very often with people who are having problems finding parking near to my business, which is the Needlepoint Joint, which is right next to Roosters. And so that parking is a huge issue, and making sure that there's some parking in this, we're talking about bringing density down. We're talking about bringing in apartments and a lot more people, and that is going to create a lot of congestion, more than is already there that the parking is not handling. And so there may be some things being addressed there that I'm not aware of. That's certainly one of the possibilities. But I'm concerned about that. Also, if it's going to be, another thing that is, we're talking about making this residential. If it's going to be a lot of residential, we have a school district that is not doing really well. The report card I read in the paper was unfavorable. And so we actually need more money for the school district rather than maintaining money that they're already getting. I think that's an issue. And those would be some of my comments. Also, of course, because I'm a business owner, I know there's lots of empty office and commercial space on 25th and Washington. I'd be really concerned about people wanting to really bring in that, businesses of that type into that area when there's so many other areas that are already set up to be commercial that are way underutilized. So those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Amelia Jones. One more.
I think you're getting a theme here. My name is L.C. Allen Jones. I'm a resident up just north of Harrison. I'm got a building over here in the redevelopment area, and I was very kind of optimistic to see what might happen here in the downtown everything. But I have some really some big concerns on who might control what happens here. We have, especially with a low margin situation, we have the potential of someone coming in and not doing a good job, spending low amounts of money and creating an infrastructure issue that is going to compound going forward. I'm really concerned about what is happening to the downtown area in general. We have a lot of empty buildings. We have a lot of empty office space, everything. We have very poor transportation area. We've just put in a big building over on 25th and Adams. We've put another big housing development there on 24th and Washington. And my concern is that what are we doing to actually promote retail and use of our downtown? Where they're all getting in their cars and driving out on 12th Street and out onto Riverdale Road. What can we do to actually stimulate a walkable public transportation style community here in Ogden that is vibrant? 25th Street has been a great example of what can be done right. And I think that some consideration ought to be done and to make sure that something like that continues going on. Because that's a very vibrant, walkable area. We have a lot of restaurants. I think that if you expand your sights on that and start promoting that in a big way, then we can have a very vibrant community here in Ogden and have a reason for other people, tourists and what have you, to come here to Ogden because we have some character. And we are not the same. We don't have the same restaurants as everyone else. We have a local, vibrant community, which is Ogden. My time is up, and thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Okay, anybody else? Oh, one more over here.
Hi, excuse me. Hi, my name is Casey Welch. I arrived here late, got off work late, so I probably missed a lot of the discussion, and I'll try to educate myself in future days as well. I love Ogden. I've been here for 3 years. I've studied it even before moving here at BYU. I'm an urban planning major, and I had a professor that would take us up to Ogden on weekends from Provo to study the history and the character and just everything that makes Ogden awesome. So I'm all in. That was about 10 years ago. Like I said, I've been here for 3 years. I love this place, and I want to see it continue to flourish and thrive. I do have a hard time with taking money from our schools to do a project like this. However, I think if that decision is made, that public money should be spent with as much public input as possible, and it should be spent on things that perhaps, as some others have alluded to, on things that will continue to attract attention to Ogden, and that might be an economic driver to kind of take to continuous to propel us forward. I think it's $20 million. I heard 22. I think $1 million of this funding would come from schools. As a newcomer, I've also heard of, and I know this has been a topic of discussion through the years, and I was very pleased to see the resurgence of the discussion, at least in the news, of a gondola project in Ogden. My background and the studying, the reading that I've done on urban gondolas, I believe Ogden to be a prime spot for something like this, to be a tremendous economic driver for not only for Ogden and the state of Utah, but perhaps for the West, for the Western United States. I know public money has been spent already on those studies on what kind of economic impact that a gondola might have to connect us to the mountains. A lady previously, 10 minutes ago, talked about a traffic problem on 25th Street. I live on 26th and Jefferson myself, and I'm impacted by that, by cars. And I'd like to see us get away from them, be more bicycle-oriented, be more gondola-oriented. I've said that already. And I think if we're using public money, that would be a good place to continue the conversation. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welch. We're happy to have you here in Wildcat Country.
Wearing purple. Only took him a couple years to come from BYU to Weber State.
Take some time to get that blue out of you, but we're glad you're in purple now. Any other comments? One more. Okay.
Good evening. I'm Alex Clift of 2683 Jefferson, and really just wanted to echo some of the comments from the first Mr. Jones. While it's great to see some of the benefits of the BDO and some of the lessons learned from the Golden Links, I'd be a little bit more interested to compare this project to some of the other things that we have in the city that are slightly more comparable to it. I'd be interested to see maybe the Junction, for example, kind of what their vacancy rates are, what their business turnover rates are, and then maybe kind of what level of taxes that's bringing back to the city. Something that more closely resembles this potential project, so we have a better idea of if it will actually bring the benefit that we're hearing it's going to bring. But that's really my only comment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. Anyone else? Oh, sorry, I missed you. Here you go. Thanks.
My name is Butch Campbell. I'm going to be brief. Brandon just mentioned lightly about Block 9, excessive parking. His cursor was sort of in the area of 26th and Wall. So I just wanted maybe him to speak a little bit more about that. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Okay. Am I missing anybody? Anybody on the other side of the pillars or anything? Okay. Okay.
Chair Nadolski, I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Heyer, seconded by Board Member Blair to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Well, that motion passes. Brandon, I think we've got some questions. I've been making a list. Hopefully you have too. We'll let you get started, and if anything that's left, we'll let you know.
Thanks. Really good questions. I appreciate everybody's thoughts. Let me combine all the questions that were given about the use of tax increment and this notion of it being taken out of somebody's account to be put into someone else's account. I think, again, going back to that slide, if I can do that again, it's important to understand that the data that we've looked at, again, we publish an annual report every year, and that annual report has all kinds of good information. It's online. We generally mail it to a whole bunch of folks as well. But that describes the base year of the project area when it was established, the prior, the valuation of the prior year, and the prospectus of what the valuation could be in the upcoming year. And so from that, we get all kinds of information. We get performance data of how these redevelopment areas are performing based on what types of investment that were made in them, what types of project areas they were, all kinds of things. And so we know that if you look at an area such as this and you go back the same duration that we're proposing, 22 years, if you go back 22 years of taxable value, you can see that the natural appreciation through the investment that has occurred for 22 years up until today, has only yielded about a 2% annual average growth to all the taxing entities. And so that's your basis, that's your hindsight. Looking forward the next 22 years, you ask yourself, how can we catalyze an additional 3-4% on top of the 2% that's already happening? And so we look over the other 18, 19 project areas, and we say these types of things are the things that we can implement as best practices in other areas to get that type of growth. And so when you put all that into a pot and shake it out, what it tells you is that properties inside an RDA grow on an annual basis 4 to 6% more than properties outside of an RDA. So what that tells us is that if a school district was to just wait the 22 years without the focused investment here, they would get a 2% annual average growth if it didn't get mitigated through the tax structure that I described a minute ago. So let's assume that over that 22-year period, they were able to capture that. Well, that's 2% a year over 22 years. We know that it's going to do that, and maybe it'll grow a little bit because things change, but when you look at 22 years of history of not doing a lot, then you ask yourself, what really is the catalyst that's going to change the last 22 years? In this case, the hostess was the catalyst, right? The opportunity to see 5 acres redeveloped from an industrial use or from a light manufacturing type of a use into something that is more contributory to what is already happening in the downtown with mixed use and walkability and all those kinds of things, then that is the impetus that you need to make the change that hasn't happened over 22 years. So in short, the entities that are involving themselves don't have a problem with this. They voluntarily contribute this money knowing that it's a good bet to bet on a project area over the next 22 years based on the prior 22 years worth of performance. And so they analyze that with us. They look at their own books. They look at their own budgets. And in this case, again, going back to the 90% participation rate, we have allowed for 10% of that new growth each year to flow through to the entity. So not only are they not waiting the full 22 years to get their payoff, not only are they going to get a greater payoff in 22 years than they otherwise would have if we just let the market do its thing based on historical evidence, they're also getting 10% of that new growth each year. And so from that, they all agreed that that was a great deal and that this is an area worth investing in from their side of the fence.
So I know that the Weber County and the district have already agreed to the agreements that we have on our agenda. Was it unanimous on case of all this?
On both sides, yeah. Commissioners.
The 90%, is that a new thing that we're doing? Are any of the other districts set up like that? RDAs?
A lot of them, yeah. Just off the top of my head, the Ogden River RDA is a 71% participation. The East Washington URA, I think, is 77. And so this isn't a new thing. Taxing entities try to negotiate as much as they can so that they can see those benefits incrementally instead of in one lump sum over time. And as we look at the potential of investment here, it's not prospectus. We have the developer sitting in the audience with us today. The ability to bring about the change that we're talking about is real and imminent based on what happens tonight. And so, again, this is a voluntary thing that school districts and the county understand at the highest level, and they know their strategies and their long-term plans better than we do. We give them the data, we answer all their questions, and they do not feel like it's money out of their pocket, because it isn't. So that kind of lumps all of those questions. Let me talk to Angel's comment about low income. Low-income housing or attainable housing or affordable housing is a buzzword now in the state because I think the studies are showing that we have more households than houses, and we all know what construction costs are doing to rents and to buying a home. Ogden is obviously part of that larger mix, but when you focus just on our geographical boundary, our micro economy is much, much different than what you might see in Salt Lake or other areas of Salt Lake County and northern Utah County. Ogden for so long has been the sole provider for low-income housing in the Tri-County area that as of 2016, this joint study that was commissioned between Weber County and I think the Housing Authority showed that according to HUD, in their low, very low, and extremely low categories, Ogden City had 4,000 units too many than what they required based on being an entitlement city, and the other entitlement cities in the county didn't have enough. And so if you just look at our circumstance and take away the vernacular and the trends and those kind of things, you'll see that, again, we have been a low-income housing provider for a long, long time. So the question isn't should we be providing low-income housing? Because we already are. That's undisputed. The question is, what kind of housing are we providing to what income levels? And right now, you see that the bulk of the discussions in Salt Lake County, and especially in Salt Lake City, saying we need more low-income housing, is because they have a plethora of market rate and above housing. Well, we have the opposite of that. We don't have enough choices for the high end, and we have too many bad choices for the low end. So it's that middle that really suffers. And so our approach is not just blanketly saying we need low-income housing and putting our blinders on. We're really trying to do this systematically, and there's lots of folks that are helping us out in the community so that we can understand what types of market rate housing do we have, because there's a deficiency there, believe it or not, and what types of low-income housing do we need to replace. There's some substandard low-income that needs to go away, and we need to bring in some quality low-income housing at all income levels so that we can have a diversified, unique community that we all value. So that conversation is immense, and I'd be happy to have it outside of this meeting with as many people and whomever would like to have it. But our situation is not just a replication of every other situation along the Wasatch Front because they need low-income housing, we need low-income housing. It just doesn't work that way. But there is a low-income housing discussion to be had, and our office and the administration is having it with, we hope, the right people. Amy mentioned parking and studies. So let me talk about, and she mentioned empty spaces too. Empty spaces is a big type of a discussion as well. Product and the right type of product is a key component to market viability. And even though there might be vacancies in the city, we find ourselves having too much of one kind of product and not enough of another. For instance, Class A office space. In the business development side of CED, we turn down an amazing amount of business that goes elsewhere because we don't have the right type of product. We have vacancies, but it's not the right type of product that these companies are looking for. So we're looking to do a Class A office building here. We have 2 other Class A office buildings in the city. They're full. They've been full for years, and so we continually turn people away because of that. Parking is a huge deal for this area. As you can see all the asphalt, and I'll combine this comment with the other gentleman's comment, I believe it was Butch, with the parking there on Block 20. We understand that that is a holding lot for some of the repos and some of the vehicles that get resold. So what we'd like to do is consolidate parking into structures and kind of move things around so that people have just as much parking in just the right location and reutilize some of that land that's being taken up for surface lots for buildings and for other amenities that make sense. So we're not looking to decrease parking. On the contrary, we're looking to increase it, but doing it in meaningful ways that make sense in terms of an urban environment. I won't even talk about the gondola. I'm sorry, Casey.
Go there.
I'm under a gag order from 10 years ago. I don't know. Let's see. The third Mr. Jones talked about low quality of improvements, poor transportation, and the use of downtown. We totally agree. We believe that the catalytic project, being the Hostess property, is going to be a top-notch, high-quality project, which is going to garner a lot of attention and a lot of impact to other projects that could be done here. We're also engaged, as Tom Christopoulos said in the work session, The USU students did a wonderful job kind of envisioning what the downtown region can be. We're going to take some of that information and actually put it into a real master plan that could inform our economic development strategy for the next 10 years, our general plan. And those are things that are going to dictate the quality, the pace, the location, how things fit together, transition spaces. So that'll be a wonderful experience for all of us to embark on, and we'll engage the community on that as well. And I think that's the bulk of it. I'd like to...
We got it. We got you.
Yeah,
we got you.
Good question. Studies.
Yeah, we got you.
So we do have a market study for this area. It shows that we engaged the leading multifamily guy who does market studies, and he says that in this general area we can absorb 350 apartment units each year for the next 5 years. And so we're confident that that the residential portion of this works. We're also looking at an office market study right now to take a look at that Class A proposal that I just mentioned. And then we will do additional studies as time goes on. We have a bazillion studies as it relates to transportation, the BRT, the Bicycle Master Plan. Those studies are already in place. We have utility studies that inform where things should go and how things should be. When it comes to residential and kind of commercial studies, we do those incrementally as the plans come about. So we're not doing this with our blinders on. We're trying to do this thoughtfully. Certainly anybody who's going to make a private investment into this area at the magnitude we're talking will engage their own studies to justify that expenditure, and I know the developers are going to augment our study with their own. So we tend to take a metered approach here. The visioning is one thing, but then the actual implementation really needs sound data to take a footing, and we'll do that.
And Brandon, that implementation would be a project by project, evaluating the development agreements as they come and how they fold within this proposed CRA and so on. And that's really where a lot of the quality and so on would probably be addressed. Is that
exactly? Each project's going to have its own set of targets, its own parameter, its own scope, and so that study has to answer those questions instead of just broad-based questions of, will this work?
Okay. So Amelia Jones also asked, and I think that you kind of got to it, but the viability of all of the things we've discussed without using the tool of the CRA.
Right. And again, that's where we look at hindsight. So without the use of CRA, what's happened over the last decade or even 2 decades? And we can see that you've got a 51-acre block of land that's worth $19 million from a taxable value or a market value standpoint. Market value is a little bit more than that. So we're saying nothing has been that catalyst over the last decade or two. So what is really going to be the catalyst in the future? Something that is in motion stays in motion until something stops it of equal or greater force, right? So we have to look at at things that are going to be that force multiplier, because again, the market isn't recognizing this location as somewhere that they would want to invest in, compared to other locations in the city, because it hasn't happened at a large level, at the level we're talking about, $264 million worth over the last 22 years. So that's our hypothesis, that's the analysis we do, and we have studies to back it up, and we have developers who are willing to make that leap. We have partners who are willing to make that investment. So it seems like all of the things that are necessary come in line.
So about the entry-level housing that Ms. Castillo mentioned, I think there are a lot of different terms. They do mean different things, but I think she's getting at making sure we have affordable options for those that are just entering the housing market and so on. That is a long conversation. I hope you'll encourage you to maybe take some time to have that conversation with her. I guess the only thing that I'm seeing left, unless someone else can tell me about something else. I think you covered it somewhat, but can you cover it specifically? Mr. Clift asked about comparisons with like CRAs. I think it was a fair comment about the range of difference between the BDO
I'm not sure why the example isn't sufficient because I'm comparing principal to principal. I understand BDO is a commercial area. The instigation of the project area was much different. The uses are much different, but the principles are the same. You take a piece of property that has very limited potential use and you infuse it with money that doesn't exist otherwise, and you reap the rewards of something that otherwise wouldn't happen. So in that sense, BDO is a perfect example because we had 1,400 acres that was going to sit fallow until the federal government gave it to us. The city bonded for $12 million in an effort to infuse infrastructure investment, and that bond was on the come. It was speculative. There was no tax increment that was available to look at and say, okay, here's a stream of income that we could rely on to pay this bond. The city fathers at that time recognized that in order to build what is there now, they would have to take a risk and make that investment. So the bond was made. Over $64 million worth of tax increment has been generated over there since 2000, and the bulk of that has come back into the project area, reinvested in roads and infrastructure and utilities. And the Boyer Company has made hundreds of $million investment in the buildings and other capital improvements there. So I think from a principled standpoint, it's a perfect analogy. But if you need something different, I've got a whole book here that will show what these principles can bring about. In 1977, the CBD Mall, at that time it was probably an RDA, was instituted to support the Ogden Mall. So this was one of the very first RDAs that were implemented in the state, and it was meant to build the Ogden Mall. At the time, it had a $3.1 million taxable value. Right now, it's got an $82 million taxable value over those amount of years. That's a long one. I could understand maybe that's not very clear. So let's go to a more recent one. The Kiesel CDA, which was established in 2015 for the purpose of renovating the Kiesel building, the Thorstensen building on Grant Avenue, some of those historic assets that we have there. That had a taxable valuation of $21 million in 2015. As of last year, it had a taxable valuation of $37 million. So just in a few years, it's seen a tremendous amount of growth. We've seen 3 buildings renovated and occupied. We're looking at the Grant Promenade extended down now to 24th Street. We've seen a company move from its original location to a new location and doubling its sales. And so there's lots of evidence to show that the principles of RDAs work.
Hey, are you going to make a report on that in just a minute?
That's
I
correct.
was looking at that chart.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Brandon.
Secret out.
Sorry.
I think there was one other question that was missed. Just what happens next?
Yeah, so we have in the plan have set out some development objectives. We have some design guidelines. Those don't take the place of our current zoning. They kind of lay on top. So anybody that is coming to the RDA for public incentive would have to not only rely and comply with the zoning, but they would also then have to be subject to the development objectives and the design guidelines in the plan. Those folks that are just developing on their own without public subsidy through the RDA would just be subject to the zone and all the other regulatory processes that we have. In addition, the downtown master plan, once adopted, would then also have additional things that could change all of those things that I just mentioned, but that would be a pretty heavy governance document, I think, in terms of quality and who's controlling what.
Don't the projects need to be reviewed by the Planning Commission, though?
Anything in the downtown has a planning commission component to it in terms of site plan approval and those kind of things. There's generally architectural approvals. Obviously, as an agency giving potentially an incentive, we're going to try to get the maximum value that we can in terms of what it does and how it looks and how it operates. So there's lots of folks involved in that quality decision.
Brandon, thanks for stepping through those. To the J-lowers and the junior J-lowers in the audience, apologize, we're churning through we got some heavy work to do here. We don't want we don't want to pass over some of these concerns, so we want to make sure we take care of it. So apologize. We're being mindful of our time, though. Okay, any other questions from the council?
Chair Nadolski, I understand things maybe a little differently than other folks. I guess my dad was a farmer, and so I understand the law of the farm better than laws of economics and stuff like that. And these types of CRAs and RDAs, they kind of seem like, for people who learn like I do, they're kind of fertilizer for the field. And without the fertilizer going on the field, the crops aren't going to grow very well. And I don't know if that helps anybody that's in the audience, but that's what we're trying to do, is to fertilize areas so that they will grow. Hopefully that'll be helpful. Brandon made one, I think it was a misnomer in his comment. He said that the school district and the county voluntarily volunteered this money, but I think it was really they volunteered their claim to this future money. I think it's a better way of saying it, and I think we knew what he meant, but I think that's maybe what we want to help people to understand, is that this isn't money until it's money, and so they're volunteering the claim to it so that they can get more money later. That's really what it boils down to.
But they're getting a 10%.
And they are getting some ongoing, so which is a good program.
Board member Hires always had a way with analogies. Thanks.
Well, it's just my daddy.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions from the council before we consider action, though? I'll just make a comment before we consider any action. I think that this topic of tax increment financing, the use of these tools, clearly it's a complex tool. It's a complex issue. I made the comment in our work session that we as council members are afforded the benefit of staff resources, repeat visitation of the same issues and so on, and we get to ask a lot of questions. And I think this isn't our first time we've seen this item specifically, or other items like it. So we are afforded the ability to get a better understanding. But I think we would be well served to have maybe a broader conversation about this topic and this issue with the community. I think from what I'm hearing from public feedback, I think we've got some work to do there to help us collectively understand the use of the tools.
Chair Nadolski, I think to springboard off of that, I think there absolutely is a discussion to be had regarding housing density, especially in these areas, with regards to its affordability and those kind of things. Even though we do have an area that, or our city does have a bulk of affordable housing and rental housing, some areas do need more density in order to be functional. Other areas don't, and I think that's a discussion that we should put on the on the short list to have in the future.
Agreed.
If you're ready for a motion, I'll ready to make
I
it.
am.
Okay, then I would make a motion that we adopt Resolution 2018-13.
Second.
Yeah. 2018-13 is supposed to be 2019.
Well, it says 2018-13
Yeah,
on
it
the
does.
agenda.
Yeah, we're okay. Okay.
It's okay. It was on the next one.
Okay, sorry. Just want to make sure we
Sorry.
Okay.
address that before we proceed. Okay, we have a motion by Board Member Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2018-13, seconded by Board Member White. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Board Member Heyer?
Aye.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Board Member White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Choberka? Chair Nadolski?
Aye. That passes. Before we move to the next items that are related to this, I think some of the comments that I heard from the community, I think there's I didn't hear, for the most part, outright opposition to the concept, but some concern about implementation of it. And I do think we're going to have some work if these interlocal agreements are approved and so on, in terms of the quality of what we consider within this district moving forward. I think there's lots of those kinds of questions: density, parking, transportation, and congestion, et cetera, quality. So I think we'll be working a lot more on that. Okay, so continuing on the agenda, reports from administration, the Continental Community Reinvestment Project Area and interlocal agreements that are related to this item. This shouldn't take too long since we've kind of covered it.
Yeah, thank you. We covered a lot of this, so I just have a couple of slides that show some of the numbers that you've just seen, but maybe more relative to this context of interlocal agreements. So if it's permitted, I'd like to just cover all three at once, and then they are individual actions. It looks like Resolution 2019-2, 3, and 4.
Right. Yeah, if you can cover them all at once, we'll take action separately.
Sure. And while he's pulling that up, let me maybe make one more comment relative to how you finished, Chair, is that every project that is associated with any of these project areas have a regulatory component to them. So there'll be opportunity for the public to engage at the site plan level, at the planning commission level. So there'll be 2 or 3 options still available for most of the projects that will be brought forth as a result of this. So there's lots of input still to be had by the public.
Thank you.
So I think we're pretty clear on the geographical boundary, how it was derived, the key projects we've discussed. Let me just stop here briefly and talk about the budget again. So again, the base year valuation as of 2018 was $19 million. We anticipate via those projects that we've listed of a $236 million investment by all kinds of sources, adding $162 million of potential taxable value over 22 years with a 90% participation rate. Again, each entity that's involved, which there's 3, would get 10% of that growth incrementally over the 22 years. And so what the interlocal agreements do for each taxing entity is it sets those terms. It sets the duration, which is 22 years. It sets the participation rate, and it also sets a maximum contribution that they're willing to make. So in the case of the city, it's proposed that the city contribute a little over $7.7 million. And this is a what comes first type of a thing. So if investment is made quicker and appreciation happens sooner, and that $7.7 million contribution is made by the city before the end of 22 years, then the interlocal agreement would terminate and there would be no additional investment made by the city. So that's the case with all 3 interlocal agreements, the city, the school district, and the county. We've asked the school district for the participation of $20 million over the 22 years and the county of a little over $7 million. Both the school district and the county have taken action in their respective boards and commissions, and they have approved those interlocal agreements, and so now it's brought to you for action on the same. Any questions?
Questions? I'll make a quick comment since we're talking about the interlocal agreement with the school district. We have Joyce Wilson, member of the Ogden School District Board of Education. Thanks for being here, both for this and the number of items on the next meeting's agenda. So no questions from the council? Thank you, Brandon. Okay, this is reports from the administration, so we won't be taking public comment on these items. So we're prepared to take action.
Chair Nadolski, I would make a motion that concerning proposed resolution 2019-2, that we adopt that resolution.
Second.
We have a motion by Board Member Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2019-2, seconded by Board Member Blair. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Heyer?
Aye.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Board Member White?
Aye.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Vice Chair Choberka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye. That passes. Thank you. Next item, proposed resolution 2019-3.
Going down the list, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2019-3. between Ogden City and Weber County.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Board Member Blair, seconded by Board Member Chaburka to adopt proposed resolution 2019-3 approving the interlocal agreement between the Ogden City RDA and Weber County. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Board Member White?
Aye.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Board Member Heyer?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye. Next item, proposed resolution 2019-4.
I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution 2019-4.
We have a motion by Board Member Heyer, seconded by Board Member White to adopt proposed resolution 2019-4. This is a roll call vote.
Board Member White?
Aye.
Board Member Blair?
Aye.
Board Member Heyer?
Aye.
Board Member Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye. That passes. Okay, thank you. Thank you to the Junior League of Ogden as well for being patient. We've got one more item of which I'm assured, right, Brandon will be brief.
So should we have the kids stand up and just like stretch for a minute?
I mean, I've run through all of the scenarios in my head.
It's okay.
If you need to use the restroom, it's a good time to do it. Get a drink of water, stretch the hamstrings, what might you? But I would love to have moved you further up, but it's a separate meeting procedurally. I just couldn't pull it off. So, Brandon, let's have you come up for the Redevelopment Agency annual report, if you would. And
This would be awesome if you want to learn more about the RDA and how it's performing.
yeah, they're getting a sneak peek into what it's like to be a grown-up. So value your youth. Okay.
Well, it's not often that I get to go first in these meetings either, so I'm taking my time. I'm sorry. I appreciate the time. As required by law and as is policy, we give a report of the activities of the redevelopment agency for the prior fiscal year, and so that's what I'd like to do tonight. We've talked a lot about this already, some of these principles and concepts, so I'll go through it. As I mentioned, we print out a version of this every year. So this is last year's. I didn't get this year's printed in time, but it is on the Y drive, and we'll put it on the internet tomorrow. It's in its final form, and then I'll distribute some printed copies to everyone over the next week or so. But it is available for public consumption by tomorrow. So we talked a little bit about this. Right now, we're just on the heel of a recent law change, and so we have lots of types of redevelopment areas that have existed over the last couple of decades: redevelopment area, urban renewal area, economic development area, and community development area. So that's the vernacular that you'll need to get used to as we talk about these kinds of things. Right now, as I mentioned before, we're in the world of a community reinvestment area. That's the term now. And again, there's two types, one with eminent domain, one without. The Continental CRA that was just approved by the board is one without. And the difference is the blight study and the use of eminent domain. And that's a rare case that we want to try to prevent using if at all possible. Right now, as I mentioned, we have 19 project areas. That's the makeup of what those acronyms are. We have 13 RDAs, 1 urban renewal area, 3 economic development areas, 1 community reinvestment area. As of June 30th. Yeah, sorry, and then 1 CDA. You've seen this already. I hope we covered this in depth. That's just, I think, a good gauge of how value is built and how the baseline stays with the entities, but then everyone reaps the rewards after that value is created. I appreciate your clarification on laying claim to future dollars. That's a good representation. In this fiscal year, we sunsetted 2 RDAs, West 12th Street and Hinckley Drive, so those are closed. The redevelopment agency no longer collects that tax increment, and all of that new value redistributes to the other entities. Over the upcoming year, we'll close those 4, American Can, Lester Park, Park Boulevard, and Wall Avenue. And as I mentioned, I believe 13 of the 19 over the next 7 years will sunset. And so we'll go from being one of the agencies with the most to one of the agencies with the least, potentially. This is a little bit of analysis. I know you can't read that. It's not important. It basically tracks all the information that's really found in here, and this is how we can understand the annual average growth of each district, and we track that, and we try to project what we think the payoff at the end of the term would be to the individual entities based on that year's tax rate. So it is kind of an art, not a science, because every year's rate is different, but it gives us a ballpark of how things are tracking and what we can do to make changes to make things better. Here's a little summary of that. So those are the last 5 districts that have expired since 2015, and you can see the annual average growth of each one. Washington Boulevard was probably one of those areas that didn't see a lot of success based on that comparison we made. So it probably tracked a little bit more average with what the market shows, but the others are significantly more in value than otherwise would have been without the investment that was made during that period. And so all of this is on that other sheet, which is also in our annual report. So we've had a lot of activities over the last year. We've been busy. Obviously, we created a community reinvestment area over in the Adams neighborhood. We've been planning feverishly for a new community-based makerspace at the Monarch Building. Hopefully that project gets some legs here soon. We have been working with private equity funds with the new Opportunity Zone law. We have all the property at the track line project area under contract for sale, so we hope to see buildings being erected this year on that area. And then in our East Washington project area, we have Stone Hill under construction, which is that housing project through community development. And our goals for this upcoming year would be to continue focus on housing. I think we had a good discussion about that, and that's an ongoing endeavor to really understand what's working, what isn't working, what is our current market needs, what are the future market needs, those kind of things. Always a continued focus on commercial projects with special attention to job creation. Putting buildings in the ground doesn't mean much unless there's jobs so that people can work and pay for them. Again, leveraging private funds so that it's not just one single tool doing all the heavy lifting, that it's spread across a lot of different sources. And then improved integration and improved coordination with our partners. Is that fast enough?
Great. Thank you. Any questions from the council?
The report will be on website tomorrow?
On the website tomorrow, it's on the Y Drive right now. So if you're bored over the next 20 minutes, thank you.
An extra copy of that. Is that an extra copy?
This is last year's.
Last year's? Okay, you don't have a hard copy.
I printed one somewhere, but I lost it. It's around here somewhere.
I'm just thinking Mr. Clift might find some of that content helpful, so let's make sure we get him connected with that, if you would.
Yeah, as of tomorrow morning, it'll be uploaded. So
thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Brandon. Okay. Any other questions from the council? If not, I'll entertain action.
I propose that we accept the presentation of the Redevelopment Agency annual report.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Board Member White, seconded by Board Member Heyer to accept the RDA annual report. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Okay, we are on our final item, public comment. This is an opportunity to address the board on any item. Anybody wish to address the board? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to the next item, comments from the executive director, who has promised he'd be brief.
I will. I certainly want to thank Brandon. As is mentioned, these things take years to put in place, so there's been a tremendous amount of heavy lift that's gone through that. We also want to thank the county and the school district, who both voted unanimously to participate in this. We really appreciate their support. Mention quickly that the 25th Street tool or fertilizer that we put on 25th Street was interesting. Greg Montgomery told me that about 30 years ago when this tool came in play, 35 of the 43 buildings we had were vacant and boarded on 25th Street. 3 years ago, it was rated as one of the top 10 streets by the American Planning Association in the United States of America. So that really did help. And when you saw the 28% annual growth, that was a tremendous tool and a lot of fertilizer that went into that. So we do have some great examples, and we appreciate the public coming and expressing your concerns and wanting to know more about how this works, because we do know it can be very complex. But we do appreciate the partners that have contributed and understand that and are making investments and building that vibrant, walkable, robust community that we've wanted, and that's had national attention. So thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for everybody that participated, and we appreciate your support as well.
Any comments from the board members? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by board member Heyer, seconded by board member Blair to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned, and we are on to the next and funnest thing. Yeah. Okay. Good? Okay.
Mr. Chair, in view of the time, I appreciate the junior league sticking it out this long. Maybe if we just go through and just pass the resolution, and they can read the resolution online, and we have several of the girls who would like to participate. It's up to you.
Okay, well, they're first on the agenda. I think we'll get them up to the mic here pretty quick.
Okay.
That's all right. Let me open up the meeting before we do any business, however. You good? Okay, welcome to the January 22nd, 2019 Ogden City Council meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present except for Council Member Lopez, who has asked to be excused. Bear with me one moment. Since we have the Junior League of Ogden in the crowd, I've been asked, and I'm happy to oblige, to remind folks that January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And I'll just remind folks that on April 17th, we were in this chambers and we passed a joint resolution with the help of the Junior League of Ogden, a joint resolution between the City Council and the Mayor committing to combat human trafficking. I was asked by the Junior League to just read a couple comments and an update for the board, or for the council, on some progress that was made. For 2018 and into 2019, the Junior League of Ogden has organized professional training for 5 departments, including Weber State, our fire department, our diversity commission, and St. Joseph's Catholic High School. They have organized community training for JLO members to be able to recognize human trafficking in the community and to see the indicators of it. They've organized and executed several community outreach events, V-Day in February 2018, the First Friday Art Stroll. They hosted a survivor panel in April 2018, community movie screening in November of 2018, and the Human Trafficking Month in January of last year. First Friday Art Stroll, they also emphasized this issue and assisted, I think it's Washington Heights Baptist Church, in the End It 5K in August 2018, and set up a booth at the farmers market to provide information about human trafficking. So a resolution from last year that didn't just sit on the shelf. It got done. That's what brings us here tonight to our next item, another recognition on anti-bullying resolution, again with our community partner, the Junior League of Ogden, and this time the Junior League of Ogden. And I'm going to turn the time to Council Member Stevens to read that proposed joint resolution, and then we'll have some words from some Junior League members.
Thank you, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, we got red shirts in the audience, and so I guess if you're a University of Utah and a Nebraska fan, you're in fine shape there. But Ogden is in the red, and that isn't bad, Mayor. It's a good thing. A joint resolution of Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell and the Ogden School District Board of Education challenging youth and students to join the Junior League of Ogden in taking a stand against bullying. Whereas bullying is a widespread issue that takes many forms and can have a multitude of adverse effects, whether verbal, physical, or cyber. Bullying is unwanted and aggressive behavior, can cause physical and emotional harm, interfere with education, learning, and create a intimidating or threatening environment. The disrupt of orderly operations of schools and communities. Bullying victims, bystanders, and even bullying themselves may develop serious and lasting mental health issues as resulting from bullying. Whereas children who are victims of bullying are more likely to experience depression and anxiety, increased feelings and sadness and loneliness, changes in sleep and eating patterns, and loss of interest in activity they've used to enjoy. These issues may follow them into adulthood. A bullied child has problems at home and struggles with depression, is part of the minority group, or is LGBTQ, is an increased risk of self-harm or suicide. And whereas children who bully may also be depressed or anxious, have low self-esteem, and be less involved in school, individuals with continued pattern of bullying behavior are more likely to abuse alcohol or other drugs, get in fights, commit crimes, and be abusive in an adult as an adult. Whereas bystanders who may not actually bully or be bullied, but align with the behaviors of others, may more likely have an interest in tobacco, alcohol, or other drugs, and more likely have an increased mental health problems such as depression and anxiety. And whereas the Ogden School District has partnered with Hope for Utah to provide students with resources and training for suicide, bullying preventions, and intervention. All school districts are implemented with evidence-based suicide preventions and curriculum, and the district partners with local agencies, community agencies, to host a yearly community suicide prevent event. The district also supports Safe Utah crisis texts and tip, providing suicide crisis support and confidential bullying prevention resources in every school. Whereas the Ogden City is providing resources to the Junior League of Ogden to support its proactive Be Good, Be Kind campaign, which is designed to reduce bullying by educating the local students about causes of bullying and the significant harm, both short and long term, causes to those bullying and bystanders. Whereas it is imperative that the children understand that bullying is what bullying is, and that it is unacceptable, and that what to do when they experience or witness this behavior. Children should always feel accountable, reporting bullying to a trusted adult. An adult should provide comfort, support, and advice. It is crucial to facilitate an open dialogue with children in order to allow these conversations to take place. And whereas students, parents, school staff, and others in the community can help prevent bullying by talking about it, providing a safe environment, by being role models who treat everyone with kindness and respect. Now therefore it be resolved that Ogden City Council, Mayor Michael P. Caldwell, and the Ogden School District hereby commit to increase awareness of bullying and help others understand the adverse effects of bullying by continuing to support Hope for Utah and the Safe Utah Crisis Text and Tip Line, by continuing to support the Junior League in its Do Good, Be Kind campaign, and by being good role models for the community in treating everyone with kindness and respect. So I propose that we adopt the resolution that has just been issued.
I second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Stevens, seconded by Councilmember Chaburka, to adopt the proposed joint resolution 2019-1. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Well, The real heavy lifting, not only with the adults of the Junior League, but also Clarice, you've done a great job, and we appreciate your leadership in this capacity. And so
we've got a chamber full of people, people who had once dreamed potentially of maybe running for city council. I think we've dashed that dream this evening.
It's so hot.
So, right? Yeah, they no longer want to spend their Tuesday nights like this. I apologize.
There's a lot of adults here.
It's really important. Yeah, it is really important that we do this, and it's really important that we have you. We'd like to have you guys, everybody, come up, not only to take a picture, but to get some wiggles out, and then we'll take our seats again, and we're going to hear from 4 of the Junior League members about some of their comments and their experiences.
this may be.
It didn't. I know.
I'm not strong enough.
You're gonna lose your jacket yet?
Oh, yeah. It gets too cold up here.
Well, I took this one on until now.
You want to tuck that inside there? You're gonna sit through this whole thing and not come up here?
Yeah, Chloe, you gonna come up? No?
You're missing a basketball game.
Do you need a second to put your shirt on there?
What's that?
Do you need a second to put your shirt on?
No. But I'll take it home and wear it, right? Oh, yeah?
We have one over there.
You might get a part, but you can't have a shirt.
Yeah, I guess so.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, Grace, go back in between Riel and Carmen. Grace, not in front of
Hold on to the end.
Okay, okay, 1, 2. Aaron, smile, 1, 2, 3. I can see everyone but Doug Stewart.
Doug Stewart, will you?
Who's Doug Stewart?
Yay!
Sure, yes.
Brandon, give it to him.
So we still gotta get it signed by the district. I'll take that because I gotta take that out.
Yeah. Thanks, Brandon.
Do we just stand in a line? Or?
Taking another one?
Yeah, I could just kind of shuffle. This is weird.
Ruby, before we hear from you, a special thank you to Emily Ballard for orchestrating that photo. Clearly, you've done that before, and has ever done that, so that worked out good. Okay, let's hear from
Chair, I think the school district is going to do their presentation sometime in February, so.
Correct. We'll cover that when we're done, after we hear from Ruby and the other 3. Go ahead, Ruby, thanks.
My name is Ruby Sanchez, and I'm the president of the Junior League this year. The Junior League offers volunteer opportunities, leadership training, and empowers young women aged 10 to 16. We operate with our own board structure and work on our own chosen projects that impact our community. We are here because we support this anti-bullying initiative. We know bullying is a widespread issue that leads to depression, anxiety, and in some cases, suicide. We are here with our unique demographic of elementary, junior high, and high school students to create a pathway to reach out to those who are in need of help.
My name is Pearl Martin, and I am the Community Vice President on the Junior League of Ogden Board. 1 in 5 youth live with a mental health condition, but less than half of these individuals receive needed services. Bullying is just one precursor to suicide, leading as a top cause of death of kids in the U.S. aged 10 to 14. However, there are many other events that can make a child think of taking their own life. The reason for someone to bully another person and the source of the bullying is often related to mental illness. Bullying is considered a type of psychological as well as physical harassment that is linked to various mental health challenges. Some of the most common mental challenges that may arise due to bullying are various types of anxiety disorders, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, panic attacks, and even depression. All these conditions carry a host of unpleasant manifestations such as insomnia and nightmares, stomach aches, fatigue, and restlessness, which can impede social interaction among children and even hinder their educational progress. Bullies continue the cycle of social abuse that they have experienced themselves. Support is often given to the bullied peers who are seen as victims. Many bullies are also victims of mental illness, and to change their behavior should be offered help as well. Although support is given, it can still be hard for people to talk about mental illness and bullying. We need to work together to make sure that anyone experiencing bullying or mental illness knows that it is okay to talk about. So, the Junior League of Ogden is looking to work with you to educate people about mental illness and bullying, and to remind people of the importance of being nice, being kind, and that doing good can really change someone's life. Thank you.
My name is Brecklin Talbot, and I am a member of the Junior League of Ogden this year. I am a straight-A student, a dancer, an avid reader, and I love going to school. I especially love to make new friends and being around people. However, when one person bullied me, it changed everything. It changed me. I was called names, cursed at, and pushed in the hall. I have had rumors spread about me and been whispered about loud enough so that I could hear it. I have been threatened, received harassing text messages, and have even been made fun of. All of these things made me feel afraid and insecure, and for the first time ever, I didn't want to go to school. I distanced myself from people so I wouldn't get hurt, and because I was truly afraid of them. But at one point, I wanted a friend so badly that I became friends with someone at school, not because they were a good friend, but because I just really wanted one friend. This choice surrounded me with the wrong people at the wrong time. You can be the person that is good and kind to someone, and in doing so, you could make someone stay. This is where we, the Junior League of Ogden, come in and present the Do Good, Be Kind campaign that we will be taking on this year. It will help empower kids to resist bullying, include others, show kindness, and give kids the support they need to overcome bullying situations and regain their confidence. I want to get all of these points across, and I want to support this initiative because I have had an experience with being bullied and don't want anyone else to go through what I had to.
My name is Rachel Ballard, and I am the Membership Vice President on the Junior League of Ogden Board. We have yet to finalize project specifics, but we have many ideas. We want to offer the children of the community as much as possible without duplicating any resources already offered. Some of our ideas include raising awareness of resources in schools, educating parents, teaching students the signs of mental health and coping skills, reinforcing the definition and effects of bullying, and participating in a film festival focusing on mental health that we have recently been invited to. Inclusion is an issue that will be relevant throughout a student's entire life. A community where everyone is accepted and individuals know how to accept others can only be achieved if all students are given the resources to better themselves. By helping students individually with their mental health at a young age, we will be proactive in building our community for the future. The mental well-being of students in our schools can be aided by creating a network of available help to youth. Then this initiative will support decreasing the stigma associated with mental health and behavioral health issues and providing care for students in the community suffering from these challenges. The Junior League of Ogden is eager to participate in this change and better our community. Thank you.
Very well done. I don't think we could have said it any better ourselves. As Councilmember Stevens was mentioning, this will be considered by the school district, and for good reason. And tonight, like I already mentioned, we're joined by a school board member, but also we have Skylar Pyle. I think she's behind. behind the pylon. She's the communications and PIO for the school district, I believe, and she's here joining us tonight, and hopefully we'll be there on February 21st at 6 p.m. when the school district considers this resolution as well. Councilmember Stevens, any comments?
Well, I think our goals for the city parallels were very along the lines of what the Junior League wants to do. We want to send a message that if you come to Ogden, you'll be safe. If you come to Ogden, we want you to enjoy not only the environment that we have, but also the culture that we have, but also the education that the students have here. And so it's all about being safe. And that parallels to what we want to achieve here in Ogden, and that's what we talked about this evening.
Other comments from council members?
I just want to make a quick comment that I'm just really proud of all of you young ladies, and especially those of you that are willing to share the stories where you might have been impacted by this issue. I mean, I think we all have at some time had some of this, but it's really brave to put yourself out there and tell people about your story, especially when it doesn't feel good when it's happening. So I'm really proud of you all, and you should be proud of yourselves.
Anybody else before we give the mayor some time?
Jumping out of his chair over there.
Well, he's anxious. He's got.
I'll play sweep if nobody else has anything to say. I want to applaud your bravery as well. We've got some and I want to thank the parents that are involved with the Junior League, helping these girls and having these rich experiences. One of my daughters is back here right now, Chloe Caldwell, and Kaylee, her sister, both got to be a part of the Junior League, and I know how much time and energy, having been married to one of those parents that showed up to meetings and put all that time, effort, and energy into it. We appreciate what you guys have done. This is a great place for people to grow up, grow together, come have great experiences. Council meeting tonight, an hour and a half late. One of them, as was mentioned, but I just wanted to make sure that all the moms and the parents that have been involved in this get some recognition and appreciation too, because it's a great program, and all you young adults are doing great things, and we're very happy and proud of you. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I'd love to just applaud you young people. You are the leaders in your communities, your school. And I want you to know that you shouldn't ever underestimate your ability to make a positive influence, especially during an active bullying event. If you come to the rescue or to the assistance of someone who's being bullied and help to change that culture, it will help everyone, including the bulliers. They'll realize that that's not something that can be done. I appreciate the idea that some of these, there is some mental illness involved, and that there is help for that. Just continue to keep doing the good work that you do. Be the leaders that you are. And it might even be okay if you did become city council members and you could make sure we don't have meetings like this. So
I blame Brandon Cooper.
Yeah, I think it's But anyway, thank you very much. It's inspiring to look at and see you in your red shirts. It's makes us proud to wear the red shirts tonight too. So where normally they would be purple, but red's okay tonight. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. So look, guys, I know it's a long night. I'm so sorry. This is my first meeting to chair, and I'm getting tons of heat on my phone right now about it, and have been all night long, as well as a ton of requests for photos from proud parents. I'll be sure to get those to you guys. I am super proud of you guys. When I came and joined you guys in that one evening when you were practicing your speeches, I went home so heartened by what you were doing, and I was reminded of it in a very personal way. And I want to share the story because this is why it's really important for us to partner with you, and it's why we need you to be excited when you leave here, even though you had to endure an hour and a half of tax increment financing, okay? Because we can pass a resolution here if we want to, and it'll end here. Because we're not the ones that are in the hallways of the schools. We're not the ones that are in the position as council members to intervene when there's an active bullying event taking place. We're not the ones that have the influence with your schoolmates. Okay, so when that's happening, I know that all of you are leaders in your schools. You're leaders in this community. You're leaders at your age. We are not. We are leaders in different ways. this is an issue that we need you to lead on. And I'm going to share a personal experience as to why I need you to continue to lead on and why I need you to continue to be excited after this meeting, okay? Because this meeting's important. It's formal. This is where we kind of cement our partnership. But the important part is every day afterward, every day at school, okay? So Hazel and Millie, will you guys stand up quickly, please? So these are my daughters, if you'll indulge me for 1 second. Hazel's 9, Millie's 7, about to be 8. So Junior League is open to members at 10 years old. So Hazel will be a Junior League member next year, and Millie will be the year after that. Grace Ballard, would you please stand? I know you are, and you led us in the Pledge of Allegiance today. I thank you for that. But I have something far more heartfelt I need to thank you for. Hazel and Millie are friends with Grace Ballard, and they were recently at a camp, we'll say, enjoying some gymnastics, right? And do you remember when those boys were chasing? She was there too? Yeah? What's your name? Charlotte. Well, I thank you because while they were running around and playing, it turned into something beyond just playing, and they got really forceful in the playing. And Hazel was really glad to have Grace there to stand up for her. Right, sweetie? Right? It feels good to have someone stand up for you, doesn't it? And it felt good as a parent to know that my daughter has a tribe too. She's got her people. That's you, Grace. Thank you. Thank you for doing what was right. Okay? As we move on from this resolution, we need all of you guys to do what was right in that moment, just like Grace did. Okay? Let's take this opportunity to do what's right. Let's stand up for our friends and those that aren't our friends, especially those that aren't our friends. If you see bullying, step in and do something about it because it makes a difference. It made a difference for Hazel. It made a difference for Millie. And it certainly made a difference for Janie and I. Okay? So, thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Stevens, for leading this endeavor and this effort. I know it's been a labor of love for you. You've been really excited about it. You guys are free to go and get some rest because you have school tomorrow.
It's 8:30, Chloe.
However, I think Rachel Ballard needs to stay for the next
for the
resolution.
Idle Free. Yeah.
Okay.
Rachel, you have to stay, man. I know they're out of here.
We didn't want you to miss much, so we dragged it on as long as we could.
As long as
I know.
We've got the whole city council meeting to go.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Except we waited for him. We held on as long as we could.
She didn't even like.
I know, she's not even staying.
Yeah.
Oh, she is coming back? Okay.
Guilt.
I know, guilt is a bad thing. We'll be fast.
Oh, okay.
Emily, I promise I'll be fast for you.
Did you see that? That's awesome. Okay. Oh, that was special. Thanks for hanging in there, everybody. Okay. Next item on our agenda is an idle-free week. We've asked Councilmember White to read that.
I apologize, Mayor. I'm doing this in honor of Rachel tonight. Okay. I'm declaring February 3rd through the 9th, 2019 as Idle Free Week in Ogden City. Whereas, like many valleys along the Wasatch Front, the physical geography of the Weber Valley, where the Ogden area rests, is prone to inversion, which results in poor air quality. This threatens our quality of life and is potentially hazardous to the health, safety, and well-being of our community. And whereas vehicle emissions are a significant contributor to air pollution and release harmful pollutants into the air, which can cause asthma and other respiratory diseases, especially during times of inversion. A simple method to mitigate poor air quality is to reduce unnecessary idling and driving. And whereas there are many opportunities to reduce unnecessary idling, such as not warming up the car in the morning, of which we all enjoy, and turning off a vehicle in a drive-through while picking up and dropping off children at school, and while waiting for prolonged periods of time at train crossings and car washes. And whereas vehicle emissions can also be reduced by planning traveling ahead of time, consolidating car trips, and using other transportation options. Taking advantage of public transportation, walking, bicycling, and carpooling are options that all help to improve our air quality. And whereas those who reduce unnecessarily idling and driving are able to save on fuel costs, conserve energy, and most importantly, contribute to the overall health of our community. Now, therefore, the Ogden City Council and Mayor Michael P. Caldwell hereby proclaim February 3rd to the 9th, 2019 as Idle-Free Week in Ogden City. We appreciate the efforts of our partners, Ogden School District, Weber Morgan Health Department, and Weber State University in helping to bring awareness to this important issue. We encourage residents, businesses, and community groups to join in this and other efforts to reduce unnecessary idling and driving throughout this week and in the entire year. Passed and adopted this 22nd day of January 2009. I'm making a motion that we declare February 3rd to the 9th as Idle-Free Week.
Okay, we have second. Thank you, Bart. We have a motion by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Blair, to adopt the joint proclamation for Idle-Free Week. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Now you can go.
Now we have
Brian, you want to come up?
Brian Benyon and Lori Butters from the Health Department. Learned a lot about tax increment financing as well tonight, but we're glad you're here with us.
Oh, yes, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joyce.
Glad you came up, Joyce.
Hi, Joyce.
Okay, Brandon, you got to kick out Lori. So take her phone so she can come up and be in the picture.
Yeah, Lori should be in the picture.
Lori, you got to be in the picture. Lori.
Yeah, Lori, come on. He'll share.
You two brothers? Great.
Couple of insurance photos. Brilliant. Thank you.
Don't you want to take some with hers? You got them?
I'll send it.
Okay, all right.
I'll just say this was a wonderful agenda. 3 wins for public health. As you're addressing housing, that's awesome. And also the bullying, that is wonderful as we talk about mental health issues and physical health issues, and then also clean air. So thank you so much for the support of the mayor and the council in our initiatives and what we're trying to do as a health department. Thank you.
Thanks for all that you do. Any comments from the council or the mayor before we lose them?
Yeah, challenge you all. Ride your bike to work every day for a year.
They all walk. I've been walking to work for a long time, Mayor.
To the basement?
Starting Monday, that's a long ride to the Capitol.
But I do appreciate everything you guys do and the support we get from you. And it's an important conversation that's not just here. It's everybody along the Wasatch Front needs to be engaging in it. So we appreciate you leading out and staying involved.
Chair, I guess I should say that Councilmember Stevens and I have been carpooling to this meeting for about the last 3 years now.
Yeah.
Because of this idle-free initiative. And maybe because of the mayor's back into work thing. It kind of started about that same time, so we're trying to do our part.
Yep.
So.
Well, I'm not sure there are more important conversations that we need to be having, that's for sure. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks for being with us, you guys. Okay, we have a request to be on the agenda tonight for the Ogden High School foreign exchange students.
Who have also sat very patiently.
They have sat very patiently.
Sat for 2 hours.
They have
10
learned
minutes
about
waiting.
local governance in Ogden tonight.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Amjad. I'm a Palestinian who lives in Israel. All I want to say is when I was chosen to be in this foreign exchange program, I felt lucky. I mean, let's face it, the United States of America is the best 10 countries in the world. And when I knew that I'm coming to Ogden, Utah, I felt even more lucky. Because I walk in the streets, everybody's smiling on me, everybody's working together, and that's just sweet. So in order to return what you gave me this chance, I try to participate as many as in service hours, as many as I can. I'm shooting now for 100 hours. I've already done 30, including food banks and being in sports team as a manager. So I wanted to say thank you.
You.
Hi, I'm Steffi. I'm from Estonia. I'm a junior in Ogden High. And I just want to thank you for having us here today. And overall, I'm thankful to have been placed here in Ogden, Utah. A big part of our experience is volunteering. So I have been helping out by cleaning the church, raking leaves for the elderly, and helping in the homeless shelter. And yeah, I have for now 12 hours of volunteer service. I will do 18 more. And for future, I'm looking forward to volunteering more at the homeless shelter and getting more volunteer hours on Global Youth Service Day. And yeah, I'm just so happy to be here. I've become so attached to Ogden that in a few years, I really hope to come here to Weber State College. Thank you.
You.
That is neat.
That is great to hear from you guys.
How long will you be here for the whole school year?
I was here since August, last of August, 31st of August, and I will leave in June.
Great. Well, we're excited to have you. Thanks for coming.
We're lucky.
And thanks for all you're doing for our community.
If you guys are looking for more hours, we got one more junior leaguer still here.
They will sign you up.
Exactly. And they promote volunteerism. This is their mission. They promote volunteerism. They develop the leadership potential of Ogden's women and young girls, as we saw. And they do that through community involvement and community growth. So if you're looking for an awesome organization to add to your experience, Community VP is right over there.
Is the education system different than in your country than here?
Everything is different, from the people to me.
Uh-huh.
We're glad we get to have you.
I know I've had some exchange students, in my home, and it's a wonderful experience, not only for you guys, but for us as host families also. So we're excited, and I'm glad you've had a positive experience.
Thank you.
What do you miss the most from your country right now?
The most probably is my family. Well, I think that's the only thing I miss right now, my family and friends. And let me tell you this, I don't miss them by much.
We won't tell them, though.
And you? And you? Your family. So besides your family, where do you miss the most? Okay.
Your what?
Your city.
Yeah.
You don't miss the food? You like the food here?
I grew up in an Arabic family, so food is everything for us.
Yeah?
So I do miss it.
Okay, all right. I knew that somehow.
He shares your passion for food. That's what brings him and his family together. It's what builds cultures and community. So we can relate. Are you staying with host families?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I hope you come back and visit us some other time.
Yeah.
Congratulations for what you're doing is very, very commendable, and we can tell you're going to go to some big places. Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay.
Good luck. Good luck. Yep. Don't be afraid to reach out if you guys need anything. If you want to learn more about tax increment, let us know.
Brandon.
We've got more. Okay. That was neat, actually. That was really impressive. Okay. Next item on our agenda, approval of minutes for the regular meeting of June 26, 2018, and joint work session of August 30th, 2018. Councilmember Blair.
Yes, thank you, Chair Nadolski. As far as I can tell, those minutes are accurate.
Thank you. Work session of September 18th, 2018, and regular meeting of October 16th, 2018. Councilmember Heyer.
Yes, Chair, I have reviewed those minutes and found them to be accurate to the best of my recollection.
A work session of June 26, 2018, and the regular meeting of September 18th, 2018. Councilmember Lopez.
Yes, Chair Nadolski, I found the minutes accurate.
And the work session of September 11th, 2018, and the special meeting of October 30th, 2018. Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, Chair, they're correct.
The joint work session and special meetings of November 13th, 2018. Councilmember White.
Yes, Chair, I found those to be accurate, and I propose that we approve the minutes.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember White to approve the minutes, seconded by Councilmember Blair. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Moving on to the items of common consent to consider appointments and reappointments to the Ogden Trails Network Committee, the Urban Forestry Advisory Committee, as well as to set the public hearing on 2 items related to our actual plan, annual action plan.
Chair, I would make a motion that we adopt the common consent agenda, and on the last 2 items to set the public hearing for February 5th through 2019.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, seconded by Councilmember White to adopt the items of common consent. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Reports from the Planning Commission. Projecting sign ordinance amendment from Greg Montgomery. Thanks for hanging in there. You're on.
Well, I don't have anything exciting.
Give him 3 minutes, will you?
It's the least he could do.
Get the 3-minute point. Yeah, we'll get the.
Hang it in there is the least he could do. Or hang it after we named a pond after him. You're right.
Yeah, wait, there's a whole pond on the
I saw the mayor's daughter kind of, as she was walking out, says, "Dad, what's for dinner?" I had asked the same question.
It's Tuesday.
Figure it out, man.
So this, let's see, is this the first item? This should be the blade signs.
It's coming up, though.
We'll go with the flow. We'll do whatever.
Whatever. So this is a petition that we received in the city to amend the sign ordinance to include in the central business district, as well as the central business district intensive, a change to allow blade signs, or signs that are perpendicular to the building, to extend up to 6 feet in width from the building. As an example, the sign at Roosters is a 4-foot blade sign. this request would go to 6 feet. The present regulation in the CBD is only 2 feet, so you can kind of get a visual of what that would look like. Several years ago, we did amend the ordinance to allow the blade signs in that CBDI, or that darker blue area as you see on that zoning map, but it did not include the central business district or the lighter blue color. As the Planning Commission looked at this, they felt that with the present regulations that had already been developed for the intensive district downtown, that there really is no additional or adverse impact to include this into the entire central business district, because the other provisions are all in place of setting standards of scale and of height and of materials, and only the projection of the sign further out from the building would be the revision that would be needed. The Planning Commission reviewed this and recommended approval on a 7-0 vote. I should mention that since Thane had filed the petition, we've had 2 other people desiring to have these same type of signs that are in the CBD zone. So it's not only Mr. Fisher's request, but there's others also who are very interested in the same type of signage. Any questions you have?
In our work session, we talked about the width of the sign going from 2 to 6, and the discussion was around whether that would distract from other properties on 25th Street. Can you address that a little bit?
So not only 25th Street, because 25th Street already allows that in that CBDI. They're in that they're in that intensive zone. So they already have that provision allowed. This would be other areas outside of the lower 25th Street. So like the Monarch Building is in the CBD above Washington Boulevard on 25th, or other areas. But it's really meant as a pedestrian means of identification of the businesses. It's meant to be looked at from the ground level, from the sidewalks. It's in proportion with the sidewalks. And so as you look down the road at potential signs, they really don't interfere with each other because of your sight distance and the fact that these don't occupy the full width of the sidewalk. The 6 feet is only a third of the width of the sidewalk.
Question, my recollection is that these were really popular back in the early to mid 1900s because of it was a pedestrian. You know, that's how people got around.
Right.
And then we disapproved them at some point, and it seems like they're coming back. Is it just here, or is it nationwide?
No, it's nationwide. It really is.
And it's for that very reason, though, isn't it? Now, as far as the pedestrian nature of this, that isn't necessarily the whole thing. The whole CBD, is that? Do you see any places that maybe this isn't going to be an appropriate use?
Well, the CBD is the only place where buildings are generally right up to property line, which is right to the sidewalk. In other locations, that really wouldn't make sense because the buildings are 20, 30, 40 feet away, and so there is no pedestrian scale that you're looking at. And so they're really trying to look at automobile traffic, and so they're looking at freestanding signs that are taller and bigger and brighter.
This is only going to really apply to a structure that is at property line.
Correct.
No matter what zone it's in, it's got to be the property line.
Yeah, I mean, the regulation is to the CBD, but that's where you generally find those type of buildings. Yeah.
Questions? We are joined this evening by the petitioner, Thane Fisher. We'd love to hear some words if you don't mind.
My name is Thane Fisher. I'm the applicant, and I appreciate you having me here tonight. I liked and enjoyed the discussion on tax increment. I think it was a very wise decision. Thank you. And we are applying to obviously have the 6 bandits so we can put a sign of this type on the Monarch building. We think it's been adopted and part of the legacy and history of this district and the building itself. If you were to look at the historical pictures of the building, there was plenty of evidence that we had similar, if not even larger types of signs on this building and in this area along Ogden Avenue as well. So Greg said it perfectly. In the matter of time, if you have questions, I'll answer them, but I hope you approve this request. If you have
Questions
no
for Mr.
questions,
Fisher?
I'll get everybody go to bed.
I had one thing. This was a major part of Roger Brooks' destination and branding study. He said you need to have more of these types of signs. They need to be bigger. They need to be more visible. You need to be able to see them if you're driving or walking instead of just having a little blurb and not really knowing what's going on. You need things to call you into these businesses. So that was another outside group that came in and said, this is really important, and I hope you guys will consider making some adjustments here.
Thank you for bringing that up. We did bring that up during the planning session. I'm just trying to keep it short for y'all.
We appreciate that.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you. Okay, any other comments or questions from the council before we receive public input? Okay, this is an opportunity to address the council on this item if anybody from the public wishes to. Seeing no movement, we've got two actions to take here. I'll entertain a motion.
Chair, I would make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2019-3.
Second it.
Dueling seconds, but we'll go. We got a motion by Councilmember Heyer, seconded by Councilmember Blair to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-3. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Vice Chair Traverka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye. That passes. Thank you.
And I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2019-6.
I second it.
We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, seconded by Councilmember Stevens to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-6. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer? Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White? Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Vice Chair Traverka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye. That passes. Thank you for your work, your investment in the area. Looks like you've got one more reason to draw your eye to that beautiful building. It's coming along nicely. Okay. Thanks for being here. Okay, next item, 1401 Shadow Valley Drive Development Agreement Amendment. Back to Greg. There you go.
So this is another petition that's come in, but rather than a zoning, this is to amend a development agreement that was created a few years ago for the care facility at the corner of Shadow Valley Drive and Harrison Boulevard. In that development agreement, it limited the parking to, as you see the site here, how it's developed. At the time, as the Planning Commission looked at this, while this met the ordinance, there were some questions about what about overflow parking for maybe times Christmas or other times when people may be visiting. And at the time the Planning Commission approved this, there was street parking allowed on Shadow Valley Drive. As the project developed and was underway, one of the things that took place was Shadow Valley Drive, the on-street parking was eliminated for several concerns, and a bike lane was placed in this area. But that took away any potential for any additional parking to happen within a very long distance of this facility. What has taken place since then is we've had parking, as has been restricted on Shadow Valley, go to maybe other properties that may be under construction. People complain about parking, complain about certain situations, and I'm already ahead of the slides I'm putting here, so I'm just trying to move ahead. So the Planning Commission looked at this request to revise the parking on site. The problem was there was not any room by the zoning ordinance to allow any more parking because they had built to the zone setback line for that facility. So as the Planning Commission looked at this and saw the request to add at least 10 more stalls in this area, one of the concerns was they had no way to grant approval because it was in the setback area. So while the Planning Commission felt confident with the request because of the changing situations, they had to refer this item to the Board of Zoning Adjustments to grant a variance to allow parking to be in that front yard setback. As the Board of Adjustments looked at this case, they granted a variance because of the unusual situation of the property line actually getting wider from the road as you went further to the south. And so you had a hillside with trees, but the state right-of-way was still right next to the where the parking could have been, and so they granted that variance and say, okay, we'll allow you to park in that setback because you're so far away from the street, it's not screened, it's an unusual situation, the property line is not following the road, and they granted a variance of reducing the setback from 20 feet to 2 feet, so the parking could take place. At the same time, though, the board said, you know, while you're requesting, this gives you an idea of the area we're talking about. You can see how the trees screen the area from Harrison Boulevard. But the Board of Adjustment said, we're going to take that idea of 10 and we want to increase it to 13 parking spaces because that, as they looked at it, that would avoid topography issues but still keep screening in place and not get too close to Harrison Boulevard where it's visible. So the recommendation that you have before you tonight, while it comes from the Planning Commission of 10 stalls, the Board of Adjustments has said in their variance approval that they ought to look at 13 stalls, which is what you're considering tonight. So you're looking at amending the language to remove the 20-foot front setback because of what the Board of Adjustments had done, and just to the approved setback, and also then to have, instead of 10 stalls, have 13, whoop, I went down too far, have 13 stalls as an approval of a revision for the development agreement. So that's what's before you tonight.
Okay.
So one of the original reasons why so many of the trees are still there is because one of the items when we originally had it agreed to have it built there was to keep as many trees.
Correct.
How many trees will be reduced by?
There may be 1 or 2, but most of this area, let's see, let's go back here to, you see that area, most of it is grass at this point. So from the street light or the parking light, that area is stall depth, so it really is not going to be infringing on any of those trees.
We are joined this evening by the petitioner, Mr. Wright. If you wish to say some words, we'd love to hear from you. If not, we're not going to force you.
Do you have any questions for me?
Any questions for the petitioner, folks? No, we're going to spare you, bud.
Okay.
Thanks, yeah.
I'd like to know the formula for tax increment based on $1 million of value.
After the meeting.
I don't think our petitioner saw my eyes. No. I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. Okay. If there's no more questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Somebody want to do one besides me?
I think it's landing on you tonight.
You're on a roll.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
You haven't had a
motion
chance
that
in a
we
while.
adopt ordinance 2019-4.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer, seconded by Councilmember Chaburka, to adopt proposed resolution 2019-4. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens? Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. Thank you, Mr. Wright, for joining us this evening. We hope that works out well for you. And it looks like
Good looking project you've got over there.
It's a great project.
Yeah, it looks awesome. We need more of those.
There's a need for that here. Okay, reports from administration. Is the council okay to continue and finish through this, or does anybody need a break for a quick second? Okay. All right.
We can do it, man.
Continental Community Reinvestment Project Area Plan, back to you, Brandon.
Not being paid by the word of the hour.
You guys are amazing. Thank you for your time. He's just going to pull up a presentation. I'm going to go over the same thing all over again.
Word for word, please.
Yeah. No, not quite. As the redevelopment board, you approved the Continental Community Reinvestment Area Project Area Plan and Budget, along with the interlocal agreement between the redevelopment agency and the city. So now it's required that the city adopt the same and also approve the interlocal agreement between the city and the RDA. So I've I talked to Tracy. She's okay if I just submit the presentation to the record. And if that's okay with you, Chair, we don't have to go over the entire thing once again. It's the same presentation.
Is there anybody from the community that wishes to hear more on this item?
Oh, more about the text.
Okay. I'm hearing a titch of sarcasm from the crowd tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, Councilmember Lopez was.
I will set up a meeting with you to come and watch that again.
Okay, great.
Different day.
Yeah, I like that. So with that, I would just recommend the approval or the adoption of ordinance 2019-5 and 2019-4.
Mr. Cooper, I think we have a motion by Councilmember Stevens.
Can I second that first part of his motion?
The so?
19-5 part?
Yes, you can. You guys are, okay. This is going sideways. Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Stevens, seconded by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2019-5. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer? Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. Item 7B.
With that, I will go ahead and make a motion that we adopt proposed resolution 2019-4.
We have a motion by Councilmember Blair, second by Councilmember White to adopt proposed resolution 2019-4. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Blair?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair Chaburka?
Aye.
Chair Nadolski?
Aye, that passes. On to new business communications plan for proposed rezone at 100 West 2nd Street. We're going to get an update from Glenn. This is an item that we extended. As per our rules, we'll bring it back to here for an update.
Yes, thank you. So I'll try to be quick as well. So as per your rules and norms, anytime you extend an item, we as council staff need to try to work on a communications plan and come back and report to you at your next regularly scheduled meeting. So this has to do with the proposed rezone at 100 West 2nd Street. This was extended at your January 8th meeting. In the meantime, the last couple of weeks, there have been some discussions with planning staff and with the petitioner about some of the changes that you all had requested with the project. We don't feel like it's the point yet where we can start to schedule meetings again. We'd like to bring that back to a work session and then figure out a time where we can bring it back to a regular meeting for consideration. So the communications plan at this point is to try to continue to work with the petitioner until we feel it could be brought back, and then schedule those meetings and mail out a new notice when it's up for consideration again. So all the folks that got the original notice will get the notice again that this will be on the agenda. So no action required on your part, no discussion about the project, simply an update on the communications plan.
Questions for Deputy Director Symes?
I do have a quick question, Chair. With respects to the communication between the developer and the residents, has that been spoken about and worked out and some of those kind of things?
There's been a little bit of movement on that. I'm not sure that we're completely satisfied with that yet either at this point, but all of those things are being worked on.
Thank you.
I think it would pay dividends if they do associate with them.
I know we can't require them to, but hopefully the encouragement will move them in that way.
Certainly make the next step a lot easier.
Sure will.
Especially love that historical element, thinking about adding some of that language, the naming and everything.
There is a lot of talk about that. Mr. Montgomery and myself had a little chat about it with some residents at Lowe's on Saturday, so it's happening. There's talk. So
that happens. We can't even go to the store. Yeah.
Just so happened our planning manager walked by and.
Okay, well, thank you.
Bad joke.
Thank you for the update, Deputy Director Symes, and for bird dogging the details. It's nice to have professionals. Okay, public comments. This is an opportunity to address the council regarding any concerns or ideas on any topic. I don't think anybody wants to sing our praise at the moment. Comments from the mayor.
I'll just quickly say I really appreciated that anti-bullying ordinance, and I'd recognize, I don't know if it was luck or timing or planning, that comes the day after the Martin Luther King holiday we just celebrated yesterday. That I think the timing for that's absolutely amazing, and I appreciate all of this gentlemen for that.
Members.
It was an honor to work with the Junior League. That is a great organization, and they have the interest of Ogden and how to improve not only the kids that are involved with it, but also the education and the community there. I was watching the Sandlot movie the other day, and it was filmed here in Ogden, and the director, believe it or not, made that film because he was bullied. And all the some of the elements in that film is portrayed through his experience, what he went through.
Let's keep that in mind when we watch that again. I like that movie.
When Squints kissed Wendy Pepperhorn.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Like, I'm speechless. That was so impressive. I'm speechless.
The amazing thing is that Larnfar Pool looks the same as what it did in that.
It does.
Yeah.
It looks exactly the same.
Does anybody else want to try and match the mayor's wit this evening before we adjourn? Before we adjourn, I'll just say that, so did you want to go
I
ahead?
was just going to thank Brandon. Oh, he's there. I'm like, where did he go? He left. I mean, I know that was a lot of questions and a lot of things to go through again, but I really do believe, like I said in the work session, that it's so wonderful to have so much community engagement on an issue, even if people feel like maybe they disagree or have questions about it. I think that is the time that's most valuable for us to engage them and to really try to work through and explain all the intricacies of things. Because we don't want to lose them. We want them to stay engaged and know that their voice counts in this process too. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
I know I gave you a lot of heat this evening, mostly deserved, but I did want to honor the work that you did. You did work your butt off to get it to this point, so thanks for doing that. The hard work pays off, so thanks for that. Before we adjourn, or before I entertain a motion to adjourn, I'll just thank Councilmember Lopez for the cultural experience you took me on this week. You guys are probably going to hear more about it, more than maybe even you want to, but there was a life experience I'll never forget, and I learned a ton, and it wouldn't be possible without having this gem on the council with us, who's an absolute resource for research. Thank you.
I had a lot of fun keeping Chair Nadolski out of trouble, so you'll hear more about everything.
I bet we do.
Well, okay.
It's noteworthy to mention that we have Oscar and Angel, both some of the people in our community that tend to lead us around. So thanks for being here.
Community Vice President for the Junior League of Ogden. Oh my goodness. And we have a Weber State student who's doing a project on community health who has just stuck it out to talk to me. Sorry, you'll be disappointed, but soon.
Well, motion to adjourn then.
Second. Motion to adjourn by Councilmember Hires, seconded by Councilmember Blair. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.